Well, hello, and Merry Christmas Eve to all y'all who celebrate that, or whatever holiday equivalent you celebrate. Hooray, let's be politically correct. What do we got today? We got Black Christmas. It's a classic, right? I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't think to do this one the first year, but whatever, we're here now. So if you're new to the channel, basically I watch a movie and I sit down in this chair here and I talk about it. Spur of the moment, no script, no planning, just one take, raw. Sometimes I'll pause and be an idiot, and that's just the way it is. I want it to be natural, off the cuff, and that's what you're getting. So anyway, spoiler alert, you know the drill. If you haven't seen this movie, there will be spoilers. So you can skip ahead to the little bar that says the thoughts or rating or whatever if you just want to skip to that. I try to keep those spoiler free. So yeah. Let us begin. So we start off with a lovely little Christmas house. People getting together, good times. It's a sorority house, actually, to be specific. And, you know, they're prepping the... What are they called? Headmaster? Is that what it is? Or the head mistress? Or I don't know. I haven't lived in a sorority, so I have no idea. But, like, the woman, adult person who operates the sorority house, I guess, is there, and they're all having a lovely Christmas, and they get her some Christmas present that is inconsequential. I mean, you know, doesn't matter. Anyway, that's the setup. Meanwhile, we have a first-person view of someone from outside the house looking in at all the comeuppance of Christmassiness. So that's fun. You ever notice I say that's fun a lot? Well, it is. So regardless, I'll keep saying it. Anyway, moving along. The phone rings, and one of the sorority girls by the name of Jess, who is essentially our main character for this film, answers the phone, and she says that it's the Moaner. Or yeah. It was nice conversation talking about, like, perverted things and stuff like that. I got a big budget, what can I tell you? Anyway. Fuck. Where was it? Okay, so talking on the phone, making pervy comments and stuff, and anyway, I think it's is it Barb? I assume it's Barb. I don't remember. I literally just watched this, but my brain is like a smooth reptile brain, so you got to bear with me here. One of the girls, anyway, tells them off and basically grabs the phone and says, "Listen, you're a sick fuck, whatever. Don't call us, etc., etc., etc." And he ends up talking more about, like, excuse the language, cunts and pussies. That's like his thing that he is going for. Anyway, he's a real perv, and she bitches him out, and then he says, "I'm going to kill you," and then hangs up the phone. And it's like, okay, well, that's ominous. Anyway, so one of the sorority girls, Claire, is like, "You think you should be doing that? I don't know if that's a great idea. The guy's kind of a psycho." And anyway, Barb, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Barb. Barb tells her off, and there's a whole comeuppance. Anyway, Claire's like, "Whatever, I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm leaving tomorrow to go see my family, so I'm going to go up and pack," which she does. Excuse me while I have a little sip of Christmas tea. Contrary to popular belief, pumpkin spice is not the only Christmas blend that you can have. Well, is that a fall blend? It is a fall blend. So you know what? Ignore the whole thing I just said. And also it has nothing to do with the movie. Nobody cares, but I'm drinking an apple spice, so whatever. Fuck. Really important. So anyway, Claire's getting dressed, and we see the first-person view of this weird dude. We don't ever really see his actual body or face or anything. Anyway, we see him climbing up like the lattice into the window in the attic, so that's where he's going to be camping out for the remainder of the film, which is a, you know, good place to hide, I guess. No one's going to go in the attic, but needless to say, he is hiding in Claire's room when she gets into the room. She's packing, and she thinks it's her cat, and so she goes into the closet, and she sees someone in, like, a clothing bag or whatever, and she's like, "Who is that?" So you know that ends well, obviously. So she she gets a clothing bag over the head and suffocated and dies, and she's toast. So that's great. Cut to the next day, we have Mr. Harrison. I'm going to call him Mr. H. He is Claire's father, and he's there to pick her up to come home. Good times. She's not there. What shall we do? So he gets the attention of some guy by the name of Peter, who we will learn about later, who says basically, like, yeah, she's in that house over there, or whatever. Anyway, needless to say, he goes to the house and he talks to Mrs. Mack, who, by the way, is an alcoholic, essentially. Like, earlier in the film, you see her, like, stashing booze all throughout the house in, like, secret places. So that's her. Anyway, this Mr. H is not too impressed with, like, the sorority lifestyle. There's, like, posters of, like, half-naked people and, like, alcohol and everything everywhere. And anyway, tries to explain, oh, it was a party, but she's a pleasant lady, so she ends up spoiling or revealing herself to be, you know, part of the action. Regardless, he drives her to the town or whatever, and that's that. Anyway, now we cut to meeting who Peter is. So Peter is Jess's boyfriend, and she drops a huge bombshell on him, and she's like, so guess what, I'm pregnant. And he's like, that's fantastic. That is so good. And she's like, yeah, I'm not keeping. And he's like, what? You didn't even ask me. So I'm not even going to get into that whole thing because, whew, yeah, that's not what you say. Anyway, it's an argument for another channel and another personality. So regardless, anyway, they have a little argument about that. He obviously wants a kid. She's like not into that. So they have a little lovers quarrel, and he's like, can we talk later at night? She's like, I guess, but it's not gonna like change my mind or anything. He's like, well, whatever, just meet me at 9. She's like, all right, whatevs. So they do that. Anyway, she goes to the police station, or no, sorry, Mr. H and Barb and Phil, who's another one of the sorority girls. Phil for Phyllis, so it's not like Phil as in Philip. So when I say Phil, it's one of the sorority girls, played by Andrea Martin, by the way. So that's kind of fun. Anyway, they go to the police station and they make a scene because no one had been taking it seriously, and I guess they know the lieutenant. So yeah, Lieutenant, what's his name? Fuller, I think. He is a little bit more action-oriented versus the sergeant that originally took the missing persons report or whatever. And so he's taking it a little bit more serious. Anyway, the sergeant ends up taking some information from Barb, who's like kind of juiced at the time, and she basically tells them that the sorority house is called Fellatio, and this guy has no clue. He doesn't know what the hell that is, so he writes down Fellatio and hands it in, and he gets made fun of later for it, which is fantastic. So that's a little fun thing that they threw in there. What else? Where was I? Oh yeah, so yeah. Anyway, back to Peter. So he's musician, we'll use that really loosely, and they show his little recital thing, and he is playing, it sounds like he's just smashing his hands all over the piano. There's like no real melody. There's like almost a melody, but it's clearly awful, and he's like ends up like smashing the piano with like a metal thing. I don't really know. That is performance art, I guess. Anyway, whoever the 3 guys who were watching him, whether they were judges or people that were looking to get him for a scholarship, or whether he was trying to book like a concert or something, I don't know what the whole thing with that is. Anyway, they're probably not that impressed. They don't look super impressed. Anyway, whatever. So that happens. Meanwhile, Jess goes to see Chris. So Chris is Claire's boyfriend. He's playing hockey, so awesome. I approve. And she goes and meets him, and he's instantly more likable than Peter, so that's not a difficult thing to do, though, to be fair. Anyway, he hasn't seen her either. She figures, okay, maybe she's like with her boyfriend. No, not at all. So she's missing. She's supposed to be leaving out of town that day for Christmas. We don't know what's going on. So the lieutenant there, Fuller, they end up making like a search party, and they go combing the last place she was seen before something. I don't know. Anyway, they go. It's a night search party, which I understand the urgency, but there's got to be a better time to do that. Anyway, there was, forgot to mention, there was a woman at the police station who was saying that their 13-year-old girl was missing. Anyway, long story short, they find the body of the little girl in this park or whatever, and of course our good friend Jess is the one who sees it and is kind of freaked out about it. Anyway, they don't show the child, so I don't know what happened to it, but it's dead one way or another. Yeah, but no sign of Claire because she's in the attic. That's where he's keeping her, in his lair, right? That's a good lair, so that's good. All the while, during the search party thing, Mrs. Mack is packing because she is also leaving the next day, she's leaving like right away that night to go somewhere to see family, I guess, and the taxi's outside waiting and honking, and she's taking her sweet time. And she hears a noise and she thinks it's the cat, like Claire's cat, obviously, right? So sees the attic door open. Okay, that's interesting. How the hell did you even get up there? We all know what's going to happen, right? So she climbs up the ladder thing, looks around. It's very dark, but as her eyes focuses, she sees Claire sitting there on a rocking chair, dead, with a bag on her head. So she freaks out and then gets a hook to the head and is pulled up via that hook. So she's dead. He's got 2 down, right? Anyway, there seems to be a pattern of every time someone dies, this guy makes a phone call. So lo and behold, Jess later gets a phone call from the creepy moaner guy. Finally, she's had enough. She's like, okay, you know what? I'm sick of this shit. I'm going to call the cop shop and get them to put a trace on it. Now, keep in mind this is the 70s, so a trace is not as instantaneous as it is now. There's a physical person who has to go check the, like, phone lines and shit. It's like a big, I don't know, like a little warehouse kind of thing or whatever, and a bunch of shelves. This is before I was born, so I don't even know how this stuff works. But anyway, it looks like they were, like, each grid has its own little box, and so to trace the call you have to manually look at all of the grids, find the one that's lit up, plug it in to listen to it. Anyway, so long story short, she has to keep this guy on the phone for them to be able to trace this properly. Meanwhile, Peter shows up. Good old Peter. He's something else. I don't like his character. We'll talk about that later, but he shows up and is an ass again, whatever, and it's not really an issue. She tells Peter, like, I found this dead little girl and all that stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, that's nice. By the way, I'm quitting piano. And she's like, okay, because, like, just, he doesn't give a shit about what she just said, you know? Like, Claire's missing. Oh, she's probably fine. But anyway, this is the real important thing. I'm quitting piano, and we're going to get married, and we're going to have this kid. And she's like, no. He's like, what do you mean? She's like, I got things I got to do in life. I can't just abandon that right now to settle down. And he's like, well, you can still do those married. What's the difference? She's like, Peter, I don't want to marry you. I was trying to be nice and not say it flat. He's like, oh, I see. Anyway, he's not very happy, which, to be fair, I mean, whatever. Anyway, he calls her a selfish bitch. And she tells him to get the fuck out. And he's like, you're going to be sorry. So that's sus. So the phone rings again, and it's the pervy guy or whatever, and all this stuff. And then the phone rings, and they're not able to trace the first one. So they run, and they're like, you got to keep him online longer. Like, I know he's gross and everything, but, like, you got to try. And she's like, yeah, it's really not pleasant, but I'll do my best. Anyway, the phone rings again, and she answers it thinking it's the perv, and it's Peter. So whatever, he's talking about killing a baby, and he's, like, crying on the phone. And when he hangs up, he ended up not able to trace that one either. It's not kept him on long enough. And the lieutenant calls back. He's like, okay, so you want to tell me about that? The guy was saying you're going to kill a baby. Can you please enlighten me? And she's like, oh, okay, I'm pregnant, and I'm getting an abortion, and that's the story. And he's like, ah, okay. So all of a sudden, everyone is totally sus of Peter. And you know what? To be fair, okay. And they were able to, whatchamacallit, yeah, the lieutenant asks her, basically, like, okay, so we gotta rule this out or rule it in, right? So, Peter, can you tell me, was he around when any of the phone calls were made? Was he in the house at all? She says, okay, actually, yeah, that first time that he called, he was in the house. So, yeah, he was. So it can't be Peter. That's fantastic. So she is pretty thrilled about that. He's still a jerk, and he could still do better, but whatever. Or she could still do better. He could not do better. I'm so sorry. That's, yeah, no. Jess, awesome. This guy, anyway. Right, so they got to try it again. So they call, and they end up tracing the call, finally. But not before. So, okay, so Barb was a juice bag, too, that night. And she, like, talks about, like, turtles having sex for 3 days to, like, Mr. H, whose daughter is just missing. And then she drunkenly rambles, like, you all think I have something to do with it, that she just left. And because of the fight that we had earlier, and everyone's like, okay, Barb, you're drunk, first of all. It's like, okay, and, like, what's going to happen if they find her dead? It's going to be blamed on me. Like, we're all thinking it, and they're like, oh my god, her dad is, like, right there. Can you please go to bed? So anyway, at this point, she's in bed and has been for a while. But guess who the next victim is? It's her. Hooray. So she has a panic attack when she sees him in the room and screams, and Jess runs up and she's got her like, little puffer thing. So she has asthma or whatever. She said, I had a nightmare. I thought there was someone in my room. Oh, god damn it. That's probably why the asthma flared up. Probably. Yeah, and also he was in the room, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So she leaves, everything's good, and carolers show up. So I don't even know if carolers exist anymore. When I was very, very young, there were still carolers. So if you don't know what that is, for some reason, again, I don't know if they still exist. Maybe they're like a United States thing and not so much a Canada thing, which makes sense because our winters are a little rough. But anyway, they go door to door and sing Christmas carols, and it's usually like a group of kids or like a group of adults or a mix or whatever. But in this case, it was children. So they're singing, you know, come let us adore him and all that stuff. And Jess is listening because that's the polite thing to do. You know, the door is open and you're freezing because you're not wearing a coat, and these kids are singing and you don't care, but you have to listen to them anyway. That's caroling. Anyway, while this is happening, Barb's getting stabbed with a glass unicorn, so she's dead. Fuck. Anyway, Phyllis is awakened because of the mix of caroling and of Barb's, you know, asthma scare earlier, and they're talking that it's not Peter. They figure it out and whatever, and she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go check on Barb. And it's like, okay. She goes upstairs, and Phil opens the door and walks in, and then the door shuts behind her, so clearly we know what's going on there. Lo and behold, phone rings again. So again, our pattern of the phone ringing after everyone dies is continuing. She answers the phone. This time they're actually able to trace it, and they call the lieutenant who's listening, and he's like, yeah. And they're like, it's coming from, I think they say like 6 Belmont Avenue. And he's like, oh, for fuck's sakes, they fucked it up. That's where the calls are coming to, not coming from. And they're like, no, like, it's both. And he's like, oh shit, that's not good. So Peter's back on the table as a sus, right? Because he was there for one of the first ones, so heaven forbid. Anyway, the cops are like, okay, call her and tell her to get out of the house. The lieutenant calls that sergeant guy, the kind of incompetent guy. The guy who wrote down fellatio. And he's like, listen, Sergeant, call Jess now. Don't tell her that the calls are from in the house, but tell her to get out of the house. We have a guy stationed outside. That officer's neck is slit, by the way, the one outside. So it wouldn't matter either way. Tell her to go outside. Don't tell her anything. Just tell her to listen. She's like, okay. Sergeant calls, and he's like, okay, Jess, you got to listen to me here. We need you to put down the phone, walk out the door, don't look back. She's like, why? What's going on? I'll just go get Phil and Barb. And he's like, no, you don't understand. You have to put the phone down, go outside. She's like, well, can I just get... The call's coming from in your house. He just tells her, just because, you know. Anyway, she drops the phone right away and grabs a little fire poker, and she's gonna go kick some ass, right? So that's pretty magical. She goes up to Barb's door and opens the door, and lo and behold, on the bed, dead Barb, dead Phil. And then through the crack you see an eyeball, and he's like, hi, it's Billy. So he's been talking about Billy and Agnes on the phone and all of these creepy calls, right? So I don't know if he's Billy, I'm assuming. Anyway, he's in there, so she shoves the door and hits him, and she goes running, and he's chasing her. There's a little scuffle, and she ends up going into the basement and locking the door of the basement, and you hear him walking around trying to get in, smacking the door, and he can't because the little padlock thingy. So he frigs off. And then she sees shadows on the basement windows. How does the basement have a window? Obviously, if it's like, you know, right at the base, whatever. I'm not explaining that. That's, you either know or you don't. Anyway, basement window, shadows, and okay, I guess he's outside now. Shit. Anyway, goes around, goes to another one. He's like rubbing on the frost, and he's like, Jess, it's Peter. Okay, so she's staying in the shadows, clutching her little fire pokey thing, and he, in all his infinite wisdom, smashes through the window. So if you weren't sus before, you're sus now. Anyway, he approaches her, and he finds her hiding in a corner, and he comes up to her, and he's like, Jess, you scared me for a minute. What are you doing down there? Anyway, Cops are on their way at this point, and they arrive to see the dead cop with his neck slit, and you hear Jess screaming, and they rush in, and when they get into the basement, they have to kick down the door because it's, remember the deadbolt, right? Kick down the door, and they find Peter dead on her lap, and she's like out of it, traumatized a little bit, so obviously she killed Peter. Not a huge loss to humanity, I'll be completely honest with everyone. Anyway, we cut to later, she's in bed, the doctor's giving her a sedative to calm her down or whatever, and someone's like, I'll stay with her, and Mr. H is in there, and he has a panic attack, and so they're like, oh my god, we gotta get him to the hospital, and then reporters are showing up, and in all the confusion, they end up leaving Jess unattended. I guess the cop who's not in on what's going on even turns off the light for her and all that, so that's great. So she's completely out of it, and then you see the guy's vision coming down, and surprise, it wasn't Peter. It was just some dude. Some scary ass, weird, creepy, mentally unstable dude. Anyway, we cut to the outside of the house, and there's quiet for a bit. You see the beat cop smoking on the front porch or whatever, because I guess they think that it's Peter, right? And after a minute of silence, the phone starts ringing, and then the credits go. So obviously, Jess is dead, which is unfortunate. Was kind of rooting for her a little bit, you know? But yeah, that was the movie, essentially. So everyone died. I guess it doesn't really matter what happened to him afterwards. I assume the beat cop never found him. They never found the two bodies in the attic, by the way. So Claire and Miss Mac are up there, and they're going to be rotting and festering in a couple of weeks or whatever. But that's great. I assume at some point they're going to find either Jess gone or Jess dead, so, you know, whatever. But we don't find that out, because that's the end of the movie. What did I think? Solid. It was a solid film. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it before, and I knew it was good. It's one of those classic slashers. Like, it's one of the earlier ones from, like, I think it's like 1974? Is that what it was? 74 or 75? I don't know, it doesn't matter. But it does it pretty well. Like, the creepy element is really good. I mean, things are dated because it's the 70s, obviously. Like, in this Christmas party, literally everyone has a cigarette going because that's just the thing. You have the rotary phone, which is awesome. You have the old school, friggin', when you're tracing calls, whatever that's called, the board. I don't know. Anyway, it's dated in that sense, but as far as the storytelling goes, the suspense, the, how the characters are written for the most part is pretty solid all around. Yeah, no complaints whatsoever. The little kind of bait and switch or whatever that they do, had I not seen it before, it could be plausible. So, I mean, the cops aren't completely useless. Like, they're just slightly not expecting it to be what it is, but they're going about the motions pretty well. So, incompetent cops, with one exception, but no spoilers. Yeah, that's pretty good. The cops knew what they were doing instead of acting like idiots, like in a lot of horror movies. The victims, the way they were killed wasn't super imaginative, but again, in the 70s, I mean, what are you going to complain about? There's not a ton of gore, but there's enough that's like, okay, for the era, it works, but you don't need a lot of gore in a movie like this, in my opinion. So I just think they did a lot of things really well, and I don't know what else to go about saying without spoiling the movie. So, I mean, as pathetic of a review as this is, I suppose, what else can we talk about here? I mean, the whole fact that I don't know if it's the first Christmas slasher movie, but like, what an interesting time to choose, like the time of the year to choose to have a slasher story. I don't know how many times that's been done before this film, so whether or not that was groundbreaking, I don't know. But it's one of those times of year where you feel safe, right? You're with family, you're with loved ones, you're with friends. I mean, what could go wrong in the spirit of giving and love and presents and baby Jesus and Santa and all that stuff, right? But alas, psychopaths don't care what time of year it is, apparently, right? So, I mean, that's a cool concept. I like it. Other than that, I mean, yeah, let's go to the rating. What am I rating it? I gave it a 7.3 because it holds up. How many years later and it's still good, right? Like I don't know what else to say. You should check it out for sure. If you haven't seen this one for whatever reason, or if you've seen the 2006 remake and thought it was okay, well, this one's better. So go see this one. If you haven't seen this or the 2006 one and you saw it's like 2019 one or whatever and you liked that one for some reason, well, the 2006 one is infinitely better than that one and this one is better than that one. So work your way back to the old school ones. That's all I gotta say on that one. One day I'll review the other two just because, but I mean right now we're doing one Black Christmas this year. I'm not doing just a Black Christmas marathon because whatever. Anyway, let's cut it here. That's basically it. Merry Christmas Eve. Check out Black Christmas 1974. It is a classic for a reason, and the reason is that it's awesome. All right, have a good one. Hopefully you don't find any coal in your stocking tomorrow. All right, bye.